All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Heavy Live. Heavy on Lakers and heavy on Bulls tonight. We've got a packed show for you. Scoop B will be alongside in a minute, and Brian Mazique joins us, making his heavy basketball live debut. Some of you may have seen him talking Patriots football, but Brian in his slick Bulls hat, a longtime Chicago sports fan and NBA junkie. So Brian will be alongside. Special guest tonight will be Craig Hodges. Craig, a two-time champion with the Bulls, and also a two-time champion assistant coach with the Lakers, among many other interesting attributes. Three-time, I should get his full resume. Three-time three-point champion as well. So Craig will be alongside, and Scoop, as we said, will be alongside shortly. But Brian Mazique leads us off. Brian, how you doing, man?
I am fantastic. Glad to be here. Thank you.
And we should set the scene in terms of everything that's going on tonight, which is plentiful. Full slate of NBA playoffs. Daniel Artest back in the comments. He's a big fan of Unique Mazique, among the many, many fans of Unique Mazique. So
I appreciate it.
Daniel, we'll see if we'll see if we can weave you into some of this conversation. I think it'll be a long night.
He must be a 2K player.
I think it's, yeah. So Bucks Magic going on now. Night number 4 of the Democratic National Convention. Joe Biden's acceptance speech later on. We'll see if we can get Biden on the show after he delivers his speech from Wilmington. Short of that, we will have Scoop Deal on.
I'll text him and see.
Yeah, get him on. I'm sure he'll have no other media obligations and nothing else to do late tonight, so he can hop on with us.
Me and Joe go back.
Yeah, there you go. So we on kidding aside in politics, one thing we'll talk to Craig Hodges about is his activism in his NBA career, particularly late in his career, and a visit that he made to the White House that he felt got him, and along with some other activism, got him blackballed from the league. Craig Hodges filed a lawsuit against the NBA owners 4 years after his last game in 1996, basically alleging that he was blackballed as punishment for political activism. So interesting time. We'll ask Craig about that. Two things on the Bulls front that are pretty interesting. One is the Bulls coaching search, which we'll get into. And the other is that the NBA draft lottery will happen live during this show. So the Bulls, Brian can size up their chances. Not super likely that they're looking at like a top 2 or 3 pick, but the Bulls are in the lottery, and we will find out where they are tonight. Brian, let's lead off with this. You told me off air you have some thoughts on what the Bulls need to do to get things cranking here. If you're in charge of the Bulls, how does the plan unfold?
Well, essentially, it's the same plan as it's always been in Chicago. Many of the fans here, you scream and they cry and they holler about, oh, we want this team. We want the team to get this free agent. We want them to recruit this guy. We want them to pay this guy. We want them to pay that guy. We've learned over the years that the Bulls are not a free agent destination. And the sooner the franchise and even its fans start to realize and accept that, the sooner you can move in the direction of how you actually have to build a team. Just case in point, look at the times over the past 35, 40 years that the Bulls have been good, competitive, or dare I say championship caliber or championship contending teams. You look at the Michael Jordan era, the team. If you look at the Derrick Rose era, the team has always built through the draft. Look at the nucleus. Michael Jordan drafted number 2 overall in the 84 draft. Scottie Pippen, a draft day trade for Odin Polynice in the 1987 draft. Horace Grant drafted. And usually there's a supplemental trade that's there that adds to that nucleus, but almost never is there a major free agent acquisition that contributes to the Bulls being a championship caliber team. It just doesn't happen. Generally, we strike out more going after the major free agents, which then ends up setting us somewhat back because they either are left with whatever they have because people told them no, or they make knee-jerk reactions and they sign guys, the highest level guy who would accept it. So back when we were recruiting Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James, all three said no. Amari Stoudemire had already agreed to sign with the Knicks. The Bulls then go to the next guy, which is Carlos Boozer, who was a decent player for us, but clearly not on the level of what they were after. So I mean third. I'm sorry, third overall.
Yeah,
Number one.
I don't know if you forgot about Hakeem.
Sam Bowie. I can't forget about Sam Bowie. It's easy to forget about Sam Bowie. Number one, Hakeem Olajuwon. Number two, Sam Bowie, and then Mike goes number 3 in 84. So it's just, this is how the Bulls build. The Bulls build in the draft when they are good. And so that to me is why days like today are bigger than what generally July 1st brings. July 1st is usually when free agency opens. Today, days like today are bigger than all of those free agent days, because we have traditionally proven ourselves to be the type of franchise that doesn't consistently draw free agents.
So let me push you on the free agent part a little bit, Brian. And here's how I'll do that. I buy that their history there is horrible, at least over the past couple decades. My question is, why does it have to be, especially with new management? You're going to have a new head coach. The NBA is a different league than it was 10 years ago, or probably even 5 years ago. So, like, of course they should draft well, but why does it have to be the case going forward that they're going to strike out in free agency?
Because it takes a lot of time and a history of essentially what should have happened, right? What should have happened after the Jordan-led dynasty. The Bulls should have established themselves as that sort of a cornerstone type of a franchise that people just wanted to go to. But unfortunately, because Mike and Scotty did not get along with management and ownership, and that was this nasty taste in the mouths of players, and because of the influence and the reach of Mike and Scotty, when they left, it didn't part in a way where it left the franchise in a good position to continue to draw free agents, to continue to get people in who would be able to continue that legacy. And so thus they're literally like starting, the Bulls were like a joke franchise for like the first 5 to 6 years after the second three-peat was broken up. And that shouldn't have been the case. There should have been something there left at some level of a foundation. You don't have your head coach anymore. The only people that were remaining with that team after the dynasty broke up was people that most of the franchise, people in the league, did not even associate with the Chicago Bulls. And if they did, it wasn't people who had favorable images throughout the league. So because of that, it takes time to rebuild that sort of a thing. And I think they may be moving in the right direction with new management now, but it's going to take some time and some success stories before they can establish that.
All right. And so that certainly a big night on that front. The guy whose name is on this show is in the green room. So we'll pop him in here. He is Scoop B. Brandon, Scoop B Robinson. Scoop joins us. Good evening, Scoop.
What's going on, sir?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we
can see you and hear you loud and clear.
Give me 1 second.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Here, I'll try.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. What's going on, everybody?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother.
I'm trying to get you to stop stealing my hairstyles.
See what happened was.
All right. So, Scoop, first couple minutes, we mentioned we'll have Craig Hodges in here. Brian, with the rundown on the Bulls building through the draft. But let me ask you this, though, Brian. They should build through the draft. We get that. Given you'll have a lottery pick and you don't know how high, what do you view as the Bulls? What's on your wish list heading into the draft?
Well, I mean, if you follow the Bulls history, you know that they've had some time periods where they have overachieved beyond what the odds would have. I mean, I think when the Bulls got number one pick for Derrick Rose, that they had one of the lowest percentages, possible to get the number one pick, and that happened. So the lottery is about wishing, you know what I mean? So, but in reality, I mean, as a person that's followed this franchise for literally, I want to tell my age, for like 40 years, literally, you just kind of get used to saying, what's the middle of the road? That's probably what'll happen. So that's probably around number 7 overall. And at number 7, we know you can always find guys, who are solid contributors or even stars. I've seen some mock drafts that have James Wiseman going at number 7, who from a pure athletic standpoint might be the highest potential guy, on the entire board. So you just never know. You never know. You never know what ends up happening. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, are you going to draft for need, or are you going to draft the best player available and kind of figure things out? The further away from number 1 that you get, the more you kind of lean towards the latter and saying, we're just going to go for the best player available, especially if you're a non-playoff team right now, right? When you're a non-playoff team, you clearly have multiple holes, or you have multiple positions where you can upgrade. So to say, oh, well, we just need a point guard, or we just need a shooting guard. Nah, there's a chance you could, you could upgrade it at whatever position, or maybe you get a guy who then allows you to make somebody else expendable. So I love Tyrese Halliburton. Love him. I just, that guy, I don't know, it's something about his game, from his length and his ability to play passing lanes and create havoc on the defensive end. I know his bring up and his release is a little slow, especially for the NBA game. But I do overall like his game. I like that dog that he plays with, which is something that is, I think you're seeing the value in a guy that has that level of a competitive spirit when you're looking at guys like Ja Morant and the way they approach the game. But I really like Tyrese Halliburton. I'd be thrilled if they walked out of the draft with him.
So I dropped in the comments in the draft lottery odds, and you're exactly right on the Bulls. Average pick, according to ESPN, is 6.2. Mm-hmm. Number 1 pick, 7.5%. I mean, crazier things have happened. Bigger long shots have happened. So the odds for the top pick are the Warriors, the Cavs, T-Wolves, Hawks, Pistons, Knicks, Bulls, Hornets, Wizards, Suns, Spurs, Kings, Pelicans, Grizzlies. So the Warriors number 1, which is so unfair to everybody else in the sport, where you win 5 straight Western Conference championships, you take 1 year off from that, and then you're back to having potentially the number 1 pick, which is a little cruel, but that's the way the system works. Reminds me, I mean, stating the obvious, but reminds me of the Spurs with,
I was just thinking that,
with Robinson being injured, they get the number 1 pick with Duncan,
and
they get back to it. So that's that. But it'd make for good content if the Bulls shock the world here and get the number 1 pick in the middle of this show. I think it'll be
if
the Bulls, to talk about.
If the Bulls go get the number 1 pick during the middle of the show, I'm going to do the rest of it shirtless.
All right. Okay. There you go. Brian Mazique shirtless in hour number 2 or hour number 3 after that happens. All right, Scoop, what's on your mind tonight basketball wise? We have playoffs all day. Looks like the Bucks will not fall into an 0-2 hole. We have the lottery. We have the Lakers trying to avoid going into an 0-2 hole. We can talk some politics if you want. We can go wherever you want. What's on your mind tonight on this busy Thursday night?
Might be a little. I think he's frozen.
Yeah, Scoop is uncharacteristically freeze prone today. So Scoop, get back to us when you're unfrozen. What are your going back to the playoffs for a second, Brian? What are your big storylines today?
We just had Demons Spiriels join the chat, and now he's a Chicago guy. Both myself and Brandon have been on their Regal Radio show. So D and Davis show, which is an awesome Chicago-based sports radio show. So what's up to Demons? But as far as the playoffs, my biggest theme right now that I see is that there really is no such thing as home court advantage at this point. You know, you're looking at a dynamic right now in the NBA playoffs that is just, I know it's foreign for a lot of guys. I've heard a lot of them reference that it feels like an AAU game, and I can understand that because anybody who's ever played AAU, then you know that when you go play, home court advantage is essentially the most popular team that can bring the most people into the gym at that time, but it's not like a location sort of a thing. And the NBA doesn't even have that right now. You know, they have, you know, some guys in the whoever, you know, sits in from another team or whatever, and you know, it's your bench and their bench. And you got so many variables involved. You got teams like the Lakers who have been impacted by people who chose to opt out. Then they had their own brand of injuries as well. Then you have an issue with maybe who can get on the same page together, and all kinds of things are happening. I'm looking at like guys like Dion Waiters who didn't have a lot of, you know, time on the floor, didn't have a lot of reps even before COVID-19 impacted the season. Looks like he's trying to play himself into shape along with trying to play well. J.R. Smith might be in the same boat. So there's a lot going on with the Lakers right now. And so the crazy thing about it is, man, is you play all season, all regular season to earn that home court advantage. And all of a sudden now it doesn't mean as much as it did all year long. Yep. So it's kind of crazy. It's like all of the top teams have somewhat had the rug snatched from under them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes for an interesting dynamic. I mean, I don't think you'd have both 8 seeds winning a one game on the road. Mm-hmm. Although I don't know, we were on the other day before Lakers Blazers, and I'll brag about this. I picked the Blazers to cover the spread. They were getting 6.5. I did say I get the minor detail wrong of who's going to win the game. I had Lakers by 4. But I don't know that you have that. I don't know if even with Dame playing the way he's playing, I don't know if they win that game on the road. Let's see if we can get Scoop. Let's see if we get Scoop back in here. And Scoop will join us, connection permitting. Francisco asking in the comments about what time lottery starts. Lottery is scheduled to start in about 10 minutes, 7:30 Chicago time. I think, Brian, let me know if you think I have this wrong. They'll wait for TV, obviously, and still about 4 minutes left in that Bucks Magic game, which is the lead-in on ESPN. So they'll wait for the game to end. But the scheduled time is 7:30 Chicago time. We'll take whatever questions anybody has. Again, we're talking Bulls. We're talking Bulls coaching search. We're talking Lakers. We're talking draft lottery. We're talking Bucks Magic. We're talking everything else, NBA playoffs and anything else on your mind. So hop into the comments. And we'll go from there. We haven't gotten deep, Brian, into the Bulls coaching search. Let me ask you 2 questions. One is, what's your best guess on who the next Bulls coach is going to be? 2 is, who do you think the next Bulls coach should be?
It's really kind of the same guy at this point. I think it's Ime Udoka. I think that the moment that the Bulls, when Karnisovas hired Mark Eversley as the general manager, because Ime Udoka, I believe right now is serving as an assistant coach for the Philadelphia 76ers, which is the organization that Eversley came from. He knows Udoka very well. And obviously, unless he has, there's some underlying thing here that he doesn't necessarily think he's the right guy for this job, I would think he'd be their first choice. Now, here's the issue. As I mentioned before, the Bulls organization doesn't have the greatest reputation, and that extends beyond just players. It extends to the coaching ranks as well, because you have to think about it. This reputation dates back more than a decade. So many of the top assistant coaches and guys like that are people who were playing during the time when this negative reputation was being established. So they may carry some of those same concepts with them about and the same perceptions of this organization. So I believe that the Bulls will have Ime Udoka as their number one selection, but the big deal here is, will he accept the job? Because at this point, Udoka's a hot candidate. He doesn't have to take the first job of the people that call his name first. He doesn't have to do that. He can wait for something that's favorable. And I think that a lot of prospective and hot commodity style head coaches or assistant coaches who may be up for head coaching jobs, I think that a lot of them are more apt to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what does getting into this situation currently, what does this mean for me? Is this a good thing, a good situation that I'm going into? And I don't know what that answer is for Udoka. So then at that point, if he does say, I don't want this job, which I don't know that he would, but if he does, you start looking at second and third options. Now, another name that I really liked is Adrian Griffin, but obviously that's been severely complicated by the allegations that have come against him from his ex-wife. There's allegations of abuse and all of those sorts of things, which of course would make it at the very least, complicated to hire him. So we'll see what happens there. Outside of that, I've heard names like Bill Self. I know that Landon Buford just said this in the comments. I know that Becky Hammon is going to be a name. Becky Hammon, for all intent and purpose, is going to be the first female head coach in the NBA. It's just a matter of where she's going to get the job at. That it's going to happen. It's just a matter of where she's going to get where is it going to happen. So her name definitely has to be in the conversation. But for me right now, if I had to say that's the guy that I want, it would be Ime Udoka. And if I was saying who I think is probably the front runner in the Bulls thought process, I would say it also would be Ime Udoka.
So in the comments, I dropped in a roundup that the Chicago Tribune published by Jamal Collier, who covers the Bulls for the Trib. Let me we'll do this, Brian. You hit, and Udoka is number 2 on this list. Although I don't think that's necessarily I don't think the order necessarily is super particular here. So let's run through here. And we'll have Craig Hodges with us in a minute. Still no scoop, but we'll get Craig in here and we'll get Craig's thoughts on the coaching search. I'll tell you what. We want to get to Craig promptly, so we'll get back to this whole list. But I'll give you the 5 guys on the list, and then we'll go through them one by one later. It's Kenny Atkinson, Ime Udoka, Wes Unseld Jr., Darvin Ham from the Bucks, and then Adrian Griffin. And they do note that the Griffin thing's really complicated. All right, so we'll bring in Craig Hodges and wait for him to pop in. Here, give us a second here. All right, Craig is on his way. Craig is on his way in. He must be sharing an internet connection with Scoop. So we'll get Craig. We'll get Craig in momentarily. We'll be here for a while, folks. So we promise we'll have him with us. So let's while we wait for him to get back in. Anyone else from that list or anyone else who's not on that list that intrigues you as a Bulls fan?
This is like a complete shot out of the dark. Like, so take this with a grain of salt and don't take this as a massive piece of seriousness, even though it's like laughing, but serious. I wonder what are the aspirations, if any, for Kirk Hinrich getting into coaching. Now, I know he's not going to pull a Jason Kidd and jump straight into the head coaching ranks and bypass all of the steps. But I've always viewed Hinrich as the kind of guy who would be able to make that transition from player to coach. And so he's one of he's like one of those guys who's like a quintessential Chicago Bull. Even though he played for a couple other franchises, you just associate him with the team. So I know that would be somebody that would be like a development down the pipeline sort of a thing. And who knows, maybe he might be the guy who ultimately succeeds Bill Self at Kansas. It's his alma mater. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Bill Self's name was mentioned as well. So that's like the wildest name that I could come up with. But Landon Buford in the comment section is also a writer at Heavy. He mentions Mark Jackson. I would love Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson would probably be second behind Ime Udoka from me on my personal list. I strongly doubt that Mark Jackson, from a personality standpoint, would jibe well with Jerry Reinsdorf. I don't know about our tourist Karnasovis. I don't know because I haven't gotten a good enough vibe from him yet. But I tell you this, there's no way in the world Mark Jackson would have worked well with Pax and Foreman. So maybe now under new management with Mark Eversley as the general manager and, and Karnasovis as the president of basketball operations, maybe that would have changed. But yes, Mark Jackson would be right there with Udoka for me.
All right, we're going to try again with Craig. And so give us a second, and we'll try to get Scoop. We'll do a 2-for-1 with Scoop and Craig. All right, so here's Scoop. Scoop, can you hear us? All right, and we got Scoop and Craig are both in and out. Appreciate everybody hang with us here. As I said, the night is young, and we'll get through this. So, Brian, sorry to cut you off, but we'll get Craig on. We'll get Scoop. More importantly, we'll get Craig on as soon as he gets a good connection. The Mark Jackson. We've talked about Mark Jackson on each of our last two shows, and kind of whether he deserves, whether he'll get another shot, and kind of whether he deserves another shot. Brian, let me ask you this, because this was a topic of conversation. We had Silk the Shocker on last week, and Silk goes way back with Mark Jackson, so he was talking to him a lot. We did a little comparison of the Warriors under Jackson to the Bulls under Doug Collins, and I was saying, we were talking about the kind of interesting hypothetical of what would have happened if Jackson had stayed. Right, because they went from being a losing team that was really young to being a team that was young that went 20 games above 500 in 2014, his last season. Then obviously they make a massive jump. Steve Kerr comes in, overhauls the style of play, kind of revolutionizes the way the 3-point shot is handled, and the rest is history. And I don't think there's much doubt that it was a good move to go with Steve Kerr. But my question for you, Brian, is, how do you think things would have played out if Jackson had kept the Golden State job heading into 2014-15?
I'm not sure. I believe that I'm not going to say, sometimes there's a specific sort of voice that is kind of required.
All right, Scoop looks like you can at least hear us this time.
I can hear you. Can you see
me? Okay.
Yes.
Loud and clear. Good job. All right.
Third. Yeah, it seems like the phone is working better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sooner rather than later, we'll get Craig. Finish your thought on Mark Jackson.
Yeah, sometimes there's a different voice required, and it doesn't mean that one coach is necessarily superior to another coach. It just means that at this point in time, with this particular group, having a separate voice or a different voice is what is needed to kind of push that team over the top. And I think that Steve Kerr's style is one more is probably better suited to kind of amalgamate a lot of different personalities and skill sets. And to Steve Kerr's credit, he always says, this is Mark Jackson's defense. He's like, this is the defense that they were playing when I got here. He came in and affected what was happening mostly on the offensive side of the basketball. And he brought in philosophies and things that he dabbled in, taken from Popovich, things that he'd taken from Phil Jackson, all of the, he played in some fantastic played with some assistant coaches and head coaches who had fantastic approaches on the offensive side. So
we got. I'm going to cut you off because we got Craig. You can see Craig. Craig, can you hear us?
Yeah, man, I can hear you. I don't know what's going on with this technology, brothers, but I appreciate this invite.
That's all good. No, we'll roll with it. We'll get to some good stuff right away, and we'll keep you for as long as we can. Craig, appreciate you hopping on. Ben Doody alongside Brian Mazique, Scoop B, with us here. Heavy on Bulls, heavy on Lakers here. Craig, as we mentioned at the top, a two-time champion player with the Bulls, two-time champion assistant coach with the Lakers. And so we get some Bulls fans, Craig, in the comments here. We have some Laker fans. We have some NBA fans. We get some people who are excited about the draft lottery. So all sorts of good stuff to talk about. What I wanted to start with, Craig, and said this at the top, you on as a guest kind of in this moment of time with activism in the NBA is a really interesting topic because a lot of the activism that you're seeing in the NBA front and center in the bubble is stuff that you, Craig, were doing and talking about 30 years ago. So you went after the championship in 1992, visited the White House, and you handed President George H.W. Bush a letter documenting, you should talk about the letter in your own words, but you laid out concerns about the way that the administration was handling policies related to underserved communities and people of color.
Right.
And I wonder, Craig, and you can go kind of as narrow or broad as you want on this. I wonder 30 years later, how you look back at what played out in 1992 and in subsequent years.
Well, first of all, just thank you guys and thank God for giving us a chance to come across the airways, man, and affect people's lives in a positive manner and give them something to consider, man. And for me, you know, we think about 1991, and as well as Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, when he did his, when he would pray, during the national anthem, when you look at those type of things during that period of time without the social media generation, it was a different time where the media was basically in cahoots with the teams and owners. So the word, for me, it was one of those things where people consider me a rabble rouser, consider me a locker room lawyer, and just stupid stuff like that, man, as opposed to what my statistics were and what my, what value I brought to whatever team I played for, But when I see what's going on today, the letter that I gave to President Bush in 1991 is apropos today, man, because, we look at and consider the issues of poor people, people of color, and people who have been oppressed over centuries. Those issues are coming to the forefront now, and all nations on earth are starting to see what has happened in America. And regardless of what we want to say American exceptionalism is and what it may be, people around the world are starting to see the impact of what Black people have brought to this nation and the way that we've been treated, not only by the police, but by societal racism.
Craig, what's up, Chief?
Hey, good, brother.
Man, I'm glad we finally got this connection right. Ben, Brian, how are you looking?
We are looking good, man. I wanted to tell Craig he doesn't know this. We were neighbors for a while. I just moved from Park Forest. So
my man.
Yeah. I used to live around the corner from Rich East. So
okay, cool.
Just moved. And one of your former players on your team is a kid that I know. I play with him a little bit up there at LA Fitness in Matson sometimes. Q, who I'm talking about, Q.
Man, yeah. And it's amazing that's the brother you play with. He was my favorite player, man, because he has a certain heart. He has a certain heart.
Yes.
That you can't reel it in because it's infectious to his teammates.
Yes.
But at the same time, I would always have to tell him, everybody doesn't have that alpha dog, So you have to try to lead by example sometimes, and sometimes you can't talk about it while you're doing it.
Yes, man. You and I having the same conversations with him. But yeah, I mean, it's an honor to get an opportunity to speak to you, man. And just a fantastic example of being more than a basketball player before that was a term.
Thank you, brother.
Craig, tell me something. I'm glad that we got the formalities, the connection together, As my grandmother would say, I'm glad we're cooking with hot grease now. I'm curious to know
Yes,
from your perspective, when you look at Colin Kaepernick, and you look at what ended up happening with George Floyd, and you look at where the NBA has gone with the names on the back of the jerseys, would it be a fair assessment to say that Colin Kaepernick, A, was right, and B, sports got it wrong?
we know one of the things that, we look at the fabric of not only Colin, but myself, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown. Sometimes we look at the people who analyze it, they say, oh man, that's a different style athlete. But when you just stop and look at where we come from, and that we're the fabric and culture of our communities, and that the struggles that were going on in our communities, we were fortunate enough to go away and study about them and try to have some impact in solving them. So we're no different than any of our other people. It's just that sometimes we're highlighted because of the positions that we have within society. And I think, when you look at us playing in the bubble, when I look at it, I haven't watched the game, man. And since they've been down there, I've seen some highlights. And when I looked at it, to me, it's a video game. It doesn't even look real to me. So it doesn't look as though it's something that, it doesn't even look like they're playing for a championship. It looks like the practice games to me. And that's why I'm telling people why the scoring totals are so elevated, because they're playing in practice, man. And in practice, it's one of those things where somebody ain't feeling like getting down, so you're going to be able to go for 50 or 60, so it's not, to me, it's, when all of it went down and they were talking about, well, we come down here to the bubble, it's going to give you a bigger platform. And to me, it's a joke, man, because we know when you go into the bubble, it's about the NBA basketball and their product. And their product is showing players putting the ball in the basket, not civil rights or human rights. And so I don't look to the NBA for human rights, because when I look at the way that I was treated over the years, and even up and through All-Star Weekend of this year, I know that I've been somewhat persona non grata, and it's cool with me, man, because I understand that we're standing on history and we're standing on historical terms that will have to be answered at some point in time, whether it be me or my children. But I think just based on the vibrations that we're seeing today throughout the world, we see a Kamala Harris being the first sister to be nominated for vice president. We see young people all over the world marching in terms of Black Lives Matter. So it's a different day, man. So when I look at Colin Kaepernick with the social media platform that he had, he was able to expand the consciousness of America at a period of time that, with Donald Trump being elected and the right wing of our society being able to stand up with dog whistles and right out, gaslighting, man. So it was this thing that I think now more than any other period of time, man, athletes have an opportunity to have even more power within bringing about solutions to those who don't have that opportunity to.
When you played and you talked about, blackballing, and I heard a little bit of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf while I was at my signal, and I felt like I was at McDonald's at a broken drive-through microphone. But when talking about that, I've always been curious about this with you and even anyone who's ever been blackballed. Mm-hmm. Were there any superstars that ever said to you, yo, you're blackballed? Were there ever role players who said that? Were there ever front office people? Like, when do you have that moment, oh, snap, I'm blackballed?
Well, for me, it was when I talked to Tex Winter, it's probably October 1992, when we should be going to training camp. I hadn't been signed by anybody. I had 2 world championships and 3 consecutive 3-point titles at that time, and I couldn't get an agent to represent me. My union told me that I needed an agent that a team owed a favor, so they would know that I'm not a bad guy. So it was things like that, and likewise, I'm a student of history, but it's one of those things when in 1991 and 92, the way that I played, the way that I carried myself, I was player rep for teams that all 4 teams I'd ever played for. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I wasn't going to get to be an unrestricted free agent when the Bulls released me and someone would pick me up. And it wasn't until, like I said, October, when I talked to Tex Winter, and he said he had called every team on my behalf, as well as Phil Jackson, and no team will return their calls. And they found that extremely odd. And so for me, when I look at the difference between myself and Colin Kaepernick, I feel like McMood as well. We had and we still have valid grievances, valid conversations that need to be had about why our careers ended in such a way where you effectively change the trajectory of my children's lives as far as generational wealth is concerned. And I think that needs to be questioned, as well as the fact that, you know, when your union doesn't stand up for you, to me, that's a total sign of collusion. And that was something that when I sued the league in 1997, the attorney that I had, who was disbarred now from the state of Illinois, was in fact trying to strike a deal with David Stern as opposed to standing on my behalf. So when I look back at some of the things that went down, I know that the position that we take in this day and time is valid because it's based on historical right conduct, historical facts that cannot be irrefutable facts. So it's one of those things that I feel like right now, those athletes who are in the bubble, especially like Dwight Howard, who's one of the ones that I've been speaking to on, you know, a monthly or a weekly basis, just talking to him about standing firm, man, that we need someone down there that's standing firm, because all I hear coming out is sound bites about Black Lives Matter. And then once again, it's a determination what black means.
You know, one of the things we were talking about those teams in that time, and I know that you had some comments about the Last Dance documentary that aired, and you weren't the only ex-Bull to have some issues with the way that whole thing went. But I got a question: were you surprised at all, considering, you know, how heavy of a hand Mike obviously had on it and the control of what was put out there? Were you surprised with the way that went?
You know, I think nobody should have been surprised when you think, you know, in fact, for me, I found out that it was coming out a week before it came out because right now I'm in the process of doing my documentary and feature film. So we've been working on our project 18 months before this came out, and my son told me about it. I'm like, I wonder why is it called The Last Dance? And then I saw where Phil Jackson always has a mantra, and I'm like, okay, I get it. But for me, it was one of those things, and looking, you know, and from the standpoint, Michael being heavy-handed, that's what Air Jordan is about, man. Air Jordan is about his iconic image, man, and that the economics behind it. It's not about the exploitation of people. It's not about the oppression of people. It's about rugged capitalism. And I think sometimes we can get stuck in thinking that. And me in my youth, man, when like I said, when I asked Magic and MJ both to, you know, to boycott the first game of the finals, I was immature at that time of the economic consequences of standing up, and, you know, not so much that I didn't know about John Carlos and Tommy Smith coming back from the Olympics and not being able to get economic jobs and that kind of thing. But it was just one of those things where, man, I'm the top shooter in the game. How can we play basketball and I not be able to play? But at the same time, realizing that, you know, if I'm playing with Michael Jordan, a lot of people are looking, and myself at times, I would say, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And people took that to mean Michael. But I was talking about Oprah in the city of Chicago. Because if you can go to South Africa and build a school, surely you could build one on the South and West side. So it's one of those things that, you know, those iconic images that we have thought that were going to be the bastion of hope for our people have actually been almost a whirlpool effect of draining the economic lifeblood out of our communities at times, just through the product involvement that they have within our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Craig,
so
you talked
the short term, no, it didn't surprise me that it was heavy-handed. Not at all.
Not at all.
You talked about Scottie Pippen and Oakley, and when you looked at the documentary and you saw the fact that he was upset about his contract, I guess my follow-up question, or my phrase question to you is this: when you look at his frustration and him expressing it, and you look at who he was as a player in the early 90s as your teammate, do you think he knew how good he was and he knew his worth, even like back then?
Yeah, man. You know, one of the things is that, you know, as young African American people, man, those dollars that we were and even now, nobody could tell LeBron James he's gonna make that type of money in a lifetime, man. So, when you get into the game and now you start to see what your value is, and the only way that you can leverage your value is to by sitting out or having a long standing negotiation or what have you. But that whole thing, in the Last Dance, it was a couple instances. So when you're talking about Scotty's contract, why is that in the Last Dance? Likewise, when Scotty didn't come out for the shot and Tony Kukoc hit the shot, you bringing up dead issues within the community where Scotty is beloved again, but now you drumming up old wounds where you weren't even on the team when he did that. So why did that have to be within the context of your Last Dance, that Scotty is this selfish individual? Then I'm sitting as a player and teammate of both of you, and then I see in the Utah game, right, coming off of us seeing how selfish Scotty is within the documentary. They show play in the Utah series down on the floor. Gets him like that's one of the most unselfish plays MJ would have ever seen in his career from a fellow teammate. So it was a lot of things, that and the whole thing with the cocaine circuits and brothers that I know from that team who are clean, decent men who had to sit and be thrown under the bus with just the insinuation that you may have been one of the ones in the room, either with lines of cocaine, weed, or women. And now you got to sit there with your grandbabies or cousins or family who we didn't gather around the TV to watch this because I know you was on MJ's squad. Now the highlight is come from the TV to which one was you in, Uncle? Which one was you in, Granddad? And these questions are some that I felt, they personal, but the way that he made it come out to be like, you're an angel, that's not cool, man.
Yeah. I think it definitely is something that kind of, I went through a gamut of emotions as I was watching The Last Dance, right? And I'm sure that a lot of people probably did. I'm looking at him and I'm like, wow, always known or always believed that Mike was the greatest player I ever saw, but I never, ever necessarily thought he was the greatest person in the NBA. I never thought that. I was never that guy. So I got this question for you. It's a two-part question. Who's the greatest player you ever saw? But then secondly, who's the greatest man you've ever come in contact with in the NBA?
Wow. Probably just from and man, that you're gonna make me throw a lot of people gonna throw some heat my way, man. Because one of the things that I tell people all the time, man, that I feel as though all my steps have been guided, man, and that when I think about Bill Walton, when I think about Jerome Whitehead, when I think about Randy Smith, when I think about Norm Nixon, I think about the players who molded me into a professional from a work ethic standpoint, from an understanding of how the game works, from an understanding how management works. It's a cadre of people that fit into that group. But just from a standpoint like that, man, I would have to say, Terry Cummings was one of the, to me, one of the solid brothers that I always and continue to see, as being a brother that went through the league, 17-year career, never really a blemish on anything, like that. So to me, that was one of the greatest brothers that I had a chance to play with. And I tell people, as far as winning championships, we would never won one without the teacher, Bill Cartwright, man.
Yeah, a lot of people, I remember when the trade was made, and I remember sitting there thinking, you gonna trade Oakley? Are you serious? But
right.
As you got to the point, it was like that inside presence on the defensive standpoint, especially during that era when we were talking about an era where so many offenses ran from inside out. If you didn't have a defender on the post who didn't need a double team to help, you were in trouble.
You think about it, if we would have kept, and I came in after Oak, so I came in with Bill, that we had Charles Oakley instead of Bill Cartwright, we wouldn't have won, man. When you're talking about, people like Brad Doherty, You know, we talking about Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about James Edwards. We're talking about Robert Parrish. We're talking about people when they would face Bill Cartwright, they would be shooting fadeaway jump shots, which is,
right.
and most of the time they were taking a drop step into the paint or turning for the little baby hook into the lane. They weren't getting in the lane, and that's why I tell people we would not have won with, like you said, without Bill being to be able to just cover our painted area, man.
Yeah, yeah. Game is so much different now than it was then. You know, do you ever look at it and because you hold Bill Cartwright in such high regard and for a good reason, that it feels as though players like him are not even NBA players anymore?
Man, when I look at Joel Embiid, and I'm just looking at his athleticism and how he could dominate from basket to basket if he wanted to, but instead of picking and rolling, he's picking and popping for 3-point shots. When I'm like, that's the easy way out. All you have to run, now you're just running from the defensive end to the 3-point line as big men. When, you know, when I think about a Bill Walton, I watched him in college when he ran the whole game with his hands up from basket to basket. You know what I'm saying? And now you look at the game, it's become so analytical that it's positionless. So if you can shoot threes or make it look like it's going in from three, you're shooting them, and it's a big difference, man. So I would have loved to seen a lot of these players play under the rules and physicality of how we play.
Yeah. So if, for anybody who's watching this and not watching the lottery, the Bulls just got the number 4 pick.
Oh,
so yeah. So Bulls just got the number 4 pick. So that does change some stuff around in regards to who you're looking. I mean, so that puts them possibly in there for Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Obi Toppin, Killian Hayes, maybe even Denny from Israel. They'll definitely be there to get Tyrese Halliburton, the guy that I really like. If you never know what to look for now, because there was a time.
Really, and now to me, all of this is it's a toss up, man. All of it. We know.
We got Craig a little in and out. I put on my screen share for a minute here just to highlight. He's talking about shooting and positionless basketball and how things are now and how things were then. How do you like 1985, 86? He shoots 45% from three, leads the league. And then Craig in 87, 88 shoots 49%, also leads the league. So not a bad shooter, as Mr. Mazique can attest as a longtime Bulls fan.
Absolutely. And I always thought that Craig was a very underrated ball handler as well, because he shot a lot of spot up stuff. But if you watch Craig, especially if you watched him when he was with the Bucks and he had more ball handling responsibilities, he could handle. He could handle too. So it wasn't sometimes what I think a lot of people don't realize is just because all you see an NBA player do regularly is 1 or 2 roles doesn't mean that that's all they have in their bag. There's oftentimes these guys have multi layers to their game. And if you picked up Craig Hodges with the Bulls, you might have thought that all he did was went and stand in the corner and waited for Mike to kick it out to him. But it was at a time I was saying, Craig, when you went out there, can you hear me?
Well,
I don't think he's back yet.
We'll get him. We'll get him when he can. Yeah, you're full disclosure. I remember. I think Brian, you're not revealing your full age, but
I tell you, I come back like Jordan. I come back like Jordan wearing the 4.5.
You have a. Let me ask you this, Scoop. So Brian has a few years on. Scoop and I are about the same age, and Brian has a few years on us. And I think Scoop, for me, I vividly remember the second Bulls three-peat. All 3 of those. And I even somewhat vividly remember the 2 Rockets championships. The first 3 Bulls championships, including the 2 teams that Craig was on, I probably did. I definitely watched those games, but you're talking about we're 5 or 6 years old, so you got to enlighten us. Give us a little bit more of a snapshot, Brian, for those who don't remember it and haven't come back and watched the tape. He's a sharpshooter. At this point, by the way, it's the end of Craig's career.
Yeah, but it's the end of his actual career, but it really was at the end of when, I mean, because if you look at it, he was 31 years old in the last year of his career in the NBA. And while his minutes had drastically decreased by that time, he played almost what was the second lowest minutes, what really was the lowest minutes he'd ever played in his career. He was down about 10 minutes a game. He still shot 39% from 3-point range. And this was at a time when, you know, guys weren't even shooting that many threes per game. 37% from three. Guys weren't even shooting a ton of threes per game. So 37% ranked much higher then in the league than it would now. I mean, you probably got 60 guys in the NBA shooting at least 37% from the three. I'm that's just a guess, but I'm thinking, it's somewhere in there. So with the Bulls, though, Craig was primarily a spot up shooter. He was a backup point guard, shooting guard. He could play either. The point guard position for the Bulls at that time was not a traditional point guard. And throughout the time with the Bulls, it was not a traditional point guard because Mike or Scotty brought the ball up and the offense kind of ran through them. And so whoever was playing point guard pretty much played off the ball a lot. BJ Armstrong might have handled it the most of any point guard in that time period. But when Craig came in, it was absolutely for instant offense. When he was on the floor, they were looking for him, trying to find his shot, because if he was hot, he could take a 3-point lead and make it 12 quick. And if the Bulls were down 13 or 10, which was rare during that time period, he could turn it to a tie game or a 3-point game quickly. And he, didn't need a lot of time to do it. Just a beautiful jump shot, 2-foot leaper, and just squared up perfectly, nicely, and just when he was hot, man, nasty.
Yeah, brothers, I don't know what this technology is doing to me today, man, but I tried.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying before you went out, Craig, I was like, a lot of people, if they picked you up with Chicago, they don't realize I say Craig was a better ball handler than I think people really understood.
Yeah, that's funny.
If you look at Milwaukee, the time in Milwaukee, and you saw when you had a lot more ball handling responsibilities,
no question.
he had some handle, some like real for real handle, like some like ooh kind of stuff, So people don't know.
That's the part of me that's funny, man. When I got to Milwaukee, I was I was point guard, so I got traded there as a point guard, and that was the first entree into point forward with Paul Pressey.
Paul Pressey, he started it.
Yeah. So and Press would draw people to me all the time, man, and drop the ball between his legs and set a pick for me, all kind of stuff. So it was fun for me just to get in the shoot, but at the same time, when I got to Chicago, I got to handle the ball some when Doug Collins would let us play that freely. But when we got with the triangle, I understood the triangle that, your dribbling opportunities are going to be mainly open court opportunities, and be ready to spot up and knock down jumpers and ball movement and spacing and player movement. And that's the foundation of the system, and it wins championships, man. So I had no bones about it. But yeah, it's funny when I hear people like, man, all Hodge can do is shoot. I'm like, man, you ain't see the summer leagues in Chicago.
Yeah. Against my man Bug, Brian Leach, man. Some of the those summer league games and them the pro-am games in Chicago back then, it was something different, man. It was something different. We were just looking over some of the stats, and it's shocking. People realize your last year in the league, you were 31 years old. I mean, that in itself is just, you look at somebody who's 31 years old in the league, especially if they're a shooter, you figure they probably got 4 or 5 more years to collect, and for that to be the end for Craig was really kind of like, wow. You're muted, Ben.
That might help to turn my mic back on, huh? What I was saying that nobody could hear was I saw a quote that I think made the rounds a good deal that you guys have probably seen from Phil about Craig, that at the end of Craig's career, he wasn't much of a defender, but as far as being a free agent goes, there are plenty of other guys in the league who weren't great defenders either, and not very many of them could shoot like Craig.
Right.
And I think Phil, forget for a second what Craig said about what was happening. Phil Jackson was surprised that Craig didn't get a look. Was surprised that there was like zero expressed interest, as opposed to at least getting like more any kind of a real legitimate look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, man. The way it went, and it was. I'm gonna tell you something, man. I'm gonna just, you want to talk about systemic racism and how it's not just a white thing, right? In the Black community, there were a lot of people that had this whole take where they were like, Craig talk too much. He do too much. And so that, you want to talk about the impact of systemic racism, that's what it is when you can inflict something so deeply on a group of people that you get them to believe that sharing your opinion and standing on anything means you're doing too much. That is when you really know systemic racism is truly in effect.
I hope we get Craig back for many reasons. One is I want to ask him, and I'm kind of curious how this plays out for current players too. You've had this attention, a ton of attention on activism the past few months. You're also in a presidential election year. Obviously, activism and politics are connected deeply, and they always have been. But one thing I'm curious about is, as you get through the conventions here, and as you get closer to November, to what extent does the election get to the forefront of some of the conversation about activism? And I think Craig's a particularly interesting guy to talk about that, in part because in 1991, 1992, he's not just an outspoken guy in general. He's a guy who hand delivers the president of the United States an 8-page letter at the White House. So that intersection, I think, is interesting. Scoop, one thing Brian and I were also talking about before you joined us is unless I missed something, an NBA champion has not visited the White House while Donald Trump has been president. I would expect that to change if Joe Biden is president. But I'll be curious, kind of on multiple fronts, kind of how that plays out. On a totally different topic, some good comments coming in about the Bulls and the fourth pick. And like a bunch of different stuff here, including LaMelo Ball. Who do you think the Bulls should grab at number 4, Brian?
At number 4, it really depends on like who's there. I really like Tyrese Halliburton. He was. Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead, Scoop, if you can.
I think that the Bulls. Brian, I think I cut you off. If I did, I'm sorry. This internet where I am is trash.
Yeah, it's all good.
But basically, I think that the Bulls need a guard, a complimentary scoring guard next to Zach LaVine and Kobe White. You have Wendell Carter, who at times able to run the floor as a hybrid power forward. Larry Markkinen, for me, has not been healthy for a lot of the season, and I think that one of the things that the Bulls have had is a scoring punch in Zach LaVine, but who else is the person who's able to contribute and help LaVine in certain key situations? He can't do it all by himself. Kobe White did average, I think he's second or third on the roster this season, averaging 13 points a game. Zach LaVine calls him a human flamethrower. But if Kobe's off, who's going to be that second role? You'd think it would be, Larry thought it would be even. That is young, and he has not been able to fit with that team this season at all. So I do think scoring guard would help. To me, a guy Cole Anthony may be beneficial if he's there at 4. I think that maybe even the Bulls could consider packaging a myriad of deals because I know that the Bulls have some questions as far as the future of Lee, whether he wants to stay in Chicago. That the coach that he did not get along with was Jim Boylan. And I can tell you that that was one of the first steps in Chicago, potentially retaining him past 2 years from now when his contract expires. So the question needs to be, if the Bulls can package a deal with a team like a 76ers, who currently 0-2 in the playoffs. The Sixers are going to have to make a decision of whether or not they want to retain Ben Simmons. So do you create, or if you want to retain Joel Embiid? So do you create a scenario where you package some picks and you potentially make some type of move with the 76ers or the Golden State Warriors? The Bulls are 4th, the Timberwolves are 1, the Warriors are 2 in the draft. So there's a lot of things to consider. But if the Bulls are going to keep that pick, scoring guard, a scoring wing may be a benefit to that team.
I honestly, I don't. I know that offensively the Bulls definitely had some struggles, but I don't think that a score first guy is necessarily the right move. I think a facilitator, or as Prophet the Realist is saying in the chat, a 3-and-D player is something that fits more with what the team needs on a night in, night out basis. I think there oftentimes the way this offense looks on the floor, especially when they get in the weeds, is it looks as though they don't have a direction. And when you have a facilitator on the floor, when you have someone to actually run an offense and to make decisions on the fly, which they haven't really had, I think that is the type of thing that allows an offense to run more smoothly. But I tend to lean more towards what Prophet the Realist is saying, or at least the concept is, which is a 3-and-D player. The Bulls were dreadful on defense whenever Chris Dunn was not on the floor. If Chris Dunn wasn't on the floor, it might as well have been us 4 or us 3 and like 2 people from 69th Street. Like, it really, this is how bad defensively the Bulls were when Chris Dunn wasn't on the floor. That's why if you look at a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, who's able to give something on the defensive end, able to also be a dependable outside shooter, even somebody lower in case the Bulls will consider trading back, like Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro is a defensive-minded kind of guy. To me, you have to give Kobe White an opportunity. Maybe they've already looked at Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley has already looked at Kobe White, and they've decided yay or nay whether or not he's a real point guard or not. I don't know what their evaluation is on that. That has a lot to do with what they do with this pick, because how you view Kobe White dictates whether or not you believe you still need a point guard. So if you think you already have that guy, or if the jury is still out, then you may go in a different direction. As far as Lauri Markkanen is concerned, I'm not sure if what we saw from Lauri Markkanen is due to the fact that he completely lost confidence in Jim Boylan and the overall situation, and we just saw a really disenchanted guy, along with the injuries that he was battling. I'm not sure. But if you talk about injuries, the guy that I'm the most concerned with is Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter has really struggled to stay healthy. So when he is healthy, I like him. I like him as kind of like a Al Horford light sort of a player. But the position that I hone in on the most, that I think without a question is the place where you have an opportunity to do something truly significant, is at the small forward position. I think everybody knows that Otto Porter is not a $25 million a year guy, which is what he's getting right now. And if you want to get to a place where you're getting the most out of that position, I think you got to target a 3-and-D style player who can occupy that position from on the defensive end, on the D side, and also can spread the floor with the 3-point shot. The problem with that is there a 3 and D style player worthy of the number 4 spot? If the answer to that is no, then now you have to consider whether or not you trade this pick. I know that Denny is. I've watched him play. I've looked at several full games of his. He gets better literally like every 2 to 3 weeks. The dude has serious game. But I don't think he'll ever be a fantastic defender. So I don't know. I mean, if put it like this, if the Bulls come away and Denny is their pick, you won't hear me argue. If Tyrese Halliburton is their pick, you won't hear me argue. If they trade back and they get, James Wiseman, that I wouldn't have an issue with that. That shows me that Wendell Carter or Markkanen are on the block. Gotta be at that point. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think anybody who was doing their mocks or doing their own projections and prognostications were thinking the Bulls were going to get the number 4 pick. So this is throwing a lot of stuff up in the air for a lot of people to consider.
We're gonna bring in a recurring guest, and he's a guy who knows both the Bulls and Lakers very well, including good NBA defense.
Yeah.
And, he is our friend Daniel Artest, host of the Daniel Artest podcast, and the number 1 recurring guest on this program. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, Brian, I'm a big fan of you, man. I follow your YouTube stuff. I'm a big 2K guy like you, and I'm a big my GM guy. I don't know what's going on. No news is coming out.
Man.
I'm like frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, man, what is going on, B? Like, so you don't know, you don't have nothing going on right now with it, right? It's crazy. Nothing coming out, man.
Hey, well, I'm gonna tell you, man, just keep it locked for the next week. I think we might have a little something to make us feel a little bit better.
Yeah, man, and I got to play against your son too, man. Your son was looking good on the 2K TV when he was playing the against one of the, I think it was him against like LeBron or something like that, whatever.
Yeah, it was against Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
He did good. He did pretty good. So yeah. I appreciate it, man. Definitely, I definitely appreciate any and all support.
Yeah, most definitely. I've been following you for years, actually, man. Because you right up my alley with that My Gym, man. That's me. I like building teams and everything. It's just because I'm not the online type of guy when I play 2K and stuff, and like playing against people that don't know how to play basketball in real life or whatever.
Right,
so,
right.
You know what I mean? I'd rather just get my own team building thing on and stuff, man. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show again, Ben. And Scoop, what's going on, man? What's going on?
Scooping on Paul's left and right here, man. So we
Craig Hodges have been
you muted, Scoop.
Yeah, I seen a video of young Scoop today too. He was on NBA Inside Stuff, man. Man, I'm just chilling, man. Just maintaining. Just just wanted to hang out with y'all for a little second, real quick.
Yeah, man. For a minute, your bro wasn't on the game, so I used to have to create him.
Yeah, he's not on 2K20 either, because to come up with that that other stuff, and Ron not really hip to it too. I'm like, because he thought he was on, and I'm like, yo, Ron, you're not on 2K. Like, you need to, I don't know what you want, money or something like that, but you need to fix that.
I'm like, man, I'm like, bro, like I because I made a all-time Pacers squad and an all-time Kings squad, and I was like, man, I need Ron on the game. I mean, dude, I'm telling you, man, I went and saw the Pacers play the Pistons. This wasn't the Malice game. I went and saw them that same year. And I know Ron Oliver, former assistant coach.
Okay.
And he was telling me, he said, man, I'm gonna tell you, man, Ron is one of the top 5 players in the NBA. He's like, I'm telling you, he's like, people don't talk about it like that. He said, but if you want to talk about putting the ball in the basket and playing on the other end, he was like, I'm telling you, there are not 4 players in this league that are better than Ron. And it was like I'm telling you, like a month later, all of that happened. It was crazy, man. I was just like, I remember being so mad that the Bulls traded him for Brad Miller and Jalen Rose. I was like, what is going on, bro? I'm like, but I honestly, I didn't have any idea he would end up being as good as he got.
I mean, yeah, he worked really hard. But I heard you talking about the Bulls and their draft pick.
Yeah,
I like the Denny guy, man, from Israel. I really do.
Yeah, I like him, man. I like him, man.
He's moving up. You know what's crazy? I was reading these different scouting reports today from different like experts, but they were saying like James Wiseman's going to fall back to the back of the lottery for some weird reason. I don't know why. I read that. I'm like,
I seen that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think James Wiseman, he's good, but we don't really know how good he is really because he only played 3 games at Memphis. You know, I thought that he should have just went pro early, get his name out there. He should have just went to Australia or something like that. LaMelo Ball, I like him too. 6'8" point guard. You can't really teach that height at that position, you know. But I really like the Denny guy, man. I really do. And the Bulls getting the 4th pick actually, like you said, it messes it up a lot for Bulls, man. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what to do. You go for a big man, you're gonna have to trade somebody. You got Zach LaVine at the guard. You got Kobe White and stuff like so. What y'all need? You got Otto Porter, but you know
that's the upgrade spot.
That's gonna be the upgrade spot. So the Denny guy, he might be the one for you. I really like him. And
when you look at the fact that the vice president of basketball operations is Arturas Karnisovas, who is an international star.
Yes,
I think he's going to be more open to looking at an international prospect with that pick. So you know they're not from the same country, but you're that broad scope of looking at the league and prospects on a global standpoint and not favor. I mean, because we talking about human beings, they got tendencies just like anybody else, you know, and they may favor going that route, you know, just simply because it's what you're familiar with. So, and if you also look at the fact that he plays small forward, you know, I don't see a lot of people. They, you know, a lot of basketball fans, and I see a lot of people in the chat and they putting like together mock lineups, and I love it. Kobe, Levine, Porter Jr. topping. My man, the deck wants the Bulls to trade for Michael Porter Jr. I don't know why in the world you think Denver would part with Michael Porter Jr. based off of what he's been doing lately. I have no idea why you would think that, but that ain't happening, bro. But you know, dude, I'm telling you, Kobe, Zach LaVine, Denny, a healthy and motivated Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. is decent. Now Andy L's got LaVine and Bradley Beal on the floor, bro. There ain't enough balls on the court for LaVine and Bradley Beal to play together.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question though. Let me ask you a question real quick. You don't think they should trade Markkanen though? Because I know that Wendell Carter wants to play the 4 now.
But here's my problem though, right? What is Markkanen's trade value right now?
That's a good question. I don't know.
You know, I feel like you stand to gain more by trying to see if a new coaching staff, new management can come in and remotivate him and get him back on that track that he was on. Because you got to think about it. Markkanen was a part of this Jimmy Butler trade. It should be important to the Bulls organization to continue to feel as though they got the better of this trade, you know, and if you look at the fact that we've had almost zero playoff success since he's been traded. So now we're saying the only thing we got left, because we pretty much know Dunn probably isn't coming back. All we got left is Zach, which obviously is the best player on the team at this point. But I want Lauri Markkanen is still a 7-foot guy who is an above average 3-point shooter. I would say a slightly above average athlete at his size. He can finish. He, you know, but he is one of those guys that you got to get him mentally on the right page. I think I would at least try to do that first, because you might actually stand to gain more by simply letting his salary fall off once the contract is over and filling that with the player that you want, rather than settling for what you have to get in a trade, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. The Bulls, y'all got a lot. Y'all got a nice future though with this 4th pick, man. What was y'all percentage? Like 1% or something?
For number 1, it was 7.5%.
7.5%. Okay, cool. I'm just glad y'all knocked the Knicks out, man. That's all that matters to me, man. anything bad happens to the Knicks is like Christmas for me, so I'm excited about it. And I'm from New York, by the way, too. So yeah, anything they gotta keep. They're gonna be cursed forever. They should have drafted my brother back in '99, so they're gonna pay for it forever.
Right.
Until I don't know until when.
Yeah, it's so funny, man, when you hear about like how families of professional athletes get like these things towards certain franchises. I was looking at the Ken Griffey Jr. Documentary, and he was talking about how the Yankees mistreated Ken Griffey Sr. And so because of that, he was raised to hate the Yankees. So his whole life he hated the Yankees and still does, because it was built into him. So it's like kind of like the same thing with you. It's like, oh, you're not gonna draft Ron? How about this?
Exactly. Personal. It's very personal, man. But this draft though, I guess it's interesting. There's no real stars in here. There's no franchise, changing players or whatever. I do like the Obi Toppin guy, but I know the Bulls don't have no use for him. They won't need him in anything. He's not a 3. He's just a 4.
He can't
I don't know.
He's not a 3.
Yeah. He's not a 3. The Bulls definitely need that small forward position locked in and stuff.
And I really do like Obi Toppin. To me, he's like a mixture, a little bit of Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire kind of a mix.
Yeah.
But he's not a real 3.
Yeah, he from New York too, so I used to hoop with his dad and stuff and everything. His dad is just same player. His dad was more athletic though, like seriously more athletic. His dad name is Stretch.
Because Obi's pretty athletic.
Yeah, he's athletic and stuff. Yeah, but Obi got athletic late though. He wasn't athletic in high school. He got athletic real late, but now he was a monster this year.
Freak. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
he's a monster this year.
Yeah, man, it's something how that happens, because I remember watching Michael Finley in high school, and he played on the team. It was called the Three Amigos. It was him, Sherelle Ford, and this guy named Donnie Boyce.
Okay.
And at the time, Michael Finley was the worst player on this. Was the worst of the 3.
Wow.
So Donnie Boyce was number 1, Sherelle Ford was number 2, and Michael Finley was number 3. But by the time they got to the league, Sherelle Ford was barely in the league. Donnie Boyce had a cup of coffee, and Michael Finley nearly had a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that late development kind of works with guys sometimes.
Hey, you think that's going to work with the Ball brothers? Lonzo get in, Melo becomes a superstar, and then Jello just becomes like this GOAT.
He wishes, him and J. Cole wishes for the middle child, but
he's not that bad though. Like he's not that bad.
He's a 6'5" power forward.
Oh, come on, don't do that. Don't do the small ball, man. Come
that's
on,
what
man.
He is, man. And he can't guard nobody, bro.
Yeah. If only he just lose a little bit of weight, because he got the shot. He got the jump shot, man. He can shoot that thing.
He can shoot it. He you know what? He might be the best shooter of the 3 brothers.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, it's just that at 6'5" with limited athleticism on an NBA level, I just don't know where he plays. I just don't know where he plays, and he can't put the ball on the floor. Not on that level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where he plays, man. I root for him because honestly, man, I kind of look at it from a human level a lot. Like a lot of people, they look at basketball players and they think like they video game characters. I'm like, no, that's a real dude. Like, and I'm looking at the fact that he's the middle brother. His older brother is in the league doing well. His younger brother is the biggest celebrity of them all, and everybody's talking about his potential and all that. Your dad gets all this attention because he does everything he does, and here you are in the middle and positioned to be the least accomplished. And I'm thinking about as a man, that's gotta hurt. You know
Sure,
what I'm
I
saying?
went through it. I know exactly how he's feeling.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm looking at it from a human standpoint, like, so I'm rooting for him for that reason,
Yeah. I know how he feels. Sure, I got a brother that's in the NBA, and then I got a brother under me that's an accomplished attorney. You know what I'm saying? But I played overseas a little bit. I had my little overseas thing and everything. You know what I mean? So I have fun. I made my money.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just chilling, living life and enjoying it. But yeah, I know for sure that Jello Ball is definitely having those type of things going on in his mind. But they also these people in the comments, they was asking what you think is the best coach for the Bulls though.
I really think it's Ime Udoka, man. I really do, man. I just really like the progressive thought process from an offensive standpoint. I think that's what this team needs. This team needs to start to. I talked about earlier how the Bulls organization just has a negative reputation in the league. Players don't fool with them. And if you start to look at these coaches, these guys that are hot candidates right now, these guys are guys who used to be in the league. I mean, Udoka played in the league.
Yeah.
So some of his perception of the Bulls or as an organization is off of what he had when he was a player. So I'm just hoping that he takes the job if offered to him, because so many people have negative connotations with the Bulls as an organization. And that started with Mike and Scotty. You know what I mean? Like, they left on bad terms, didn't like management, was meh about ownership. And that has continued. You know what I mean? Jimmy Butler has said stuff. Zach LaVine had a problem with this coaching staff and this management, so it just keeps going on. And, like, we had a couple turning points, right? I can't remember what summer this was, but it was when we really sucked after the Jordan dynasty. We had Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, and Tim Duncan all on a free agent visits, and they all came out and they went to White Sox games and all this. And Tracy McGrady threw out the first pitch for the Chicago White Sox, and he was locked on like he was gonna sign.
Yeah,
and changed his mind at the last minute, and it was just like boom. And I think we ended up with Ron Mercer.
Oh, wow.
Right. And
wow.
And then there was another time when they were recruiting Carmelo. And this was Derrick Rose, healthy Derrick Rose.
Yep.
And, and they were recruiting Melo, and Melo was about to say, yeah. And then he said, no, I'm going to stay home.
All they had to do was really with Melo was just clear the space up and give him the money.
Well, they offered it to him, and he said, he said he chose to stay home. He said he regrets that decision. He said he really did. He said he regrets it. He wished that he had came, and but those two things were very big turning points, because those are the types of free agent signings that could have changed the Bulls' narrative.
Yeah,
with teams and with players, and it didn't happen. So
the crazy thing is, like, you got to blame ownership though, because ownership don't step in the way of this stuff. Even during the Bulls championship years, like we was watching The Last Dance, and I'm thinking the whole time, like, what is going on with Mr. Reinsdorf?
Right? Why is he letting this go down like this?
You chose Jerry Krause over Jordan and Pippen. You're crazy. But having said that, being around the Bulls during my brother's years and stuff, Jerry Krause was a really nice man. Like he was really nice.
Yeah.
Ron didn't have an issue with him. I didn't have an issue with him.
And he loved Ron.
He let me use Berto Center. I was 16 when I was out there. He let me use Berto Center. I had a 5 key and everything, and go shoot around and work out in Berto Center and everything. That was some good times. So I was surprised, like, how these stories of him came out, especially during The Last Dance. I was really surprised, and it was really sad that he didn't really get to. He's not allowed to, defend himself and everything.
Definitely, man. And I honestly, I think I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I'm born and raised Chicago, South Side of Chicago. I grew up on Mike. And I said this to Craig, because Craig Hodges was on here earlier. I've always known that Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. But I've also always known that he wasn't the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And so I'm literally watching The Last Dance, and I'm saying to myself, I would have been Horace Grant. I would have been Horace Grant. Me and Mike would have fought every day until they traded me, because they would have been like, dude, Mike's better than you. You got to go. You can't be fighting Mike every day at practice, because I'm telling you, it's no way in the world that personality type and me and him would have meshed. And so I see that, right? And so when I'm looking at The Last Dance and I'm looking at, like, I really thought it was kind of really low class, honestly, to put this out like that after Jerry Krause was dead. Like, and I know Jerry Krause is the little fat guy who is fun to everybody to pick on him, but that's still like a human being. And like Craig was talking about earlier, he was like, he was talking about the players that Mike kind of threw under the bus during the documentary. He was like, these guys got their grandkids and nieces and nephews sitting around watching this, and you're making these implications as if they're involved with all this negative stuff or saying this stuff about them. But what about Jerry Krause's family? You know what I'm saying? You're saying all this stuff, and his grandkids and nieces and nephews and people are sitting up here watching like, dang. So you best believe they hate Mike right now. And with good reason. You know what I'm saying? Because if you did a documentary and talk like that about my father, bro, I wouldn't buy another pair of Air Nothings. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
I just thought Michael was petty with everything. Because he had the footage. It was him releasing all of this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
It's his word right now against everybody else's and stuff. And I just thought that was really petty to control the entire, like, I liked it, but I didn't like it because I wish it was more like open. With everybody,
it was entertaining. It was entertaining, but it wasn't nice.
It wasn't.
You know what I'm saying? It was entertaining, but it wasn't nice. Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, in Chicago, man, having anything critical to say about Michael Jordan, especially if you're talking to a crowd of people who are 30 and over, it's almost like you said something about Jesus, man. It's like it's like that here. It's like that here, man. I'm like, people, like, I'm telling you, bro, if you say something about Mike up in here to some people who are 30 and over, who you know what it's almost like? You ever say something bad about somebody? You ever had a critical comment about Tupac to a 30 or 35-year-old hip hop fan?
My opinion on Tupac is this: he's good with the inspirational songs like Brenda Had a Baby, Dear Mama, all that stuff. But his lyrics is actually kind of trash when he's just rapping.
Line for line, man. I've always, me and you, I don't know. I think my last name might actually be Artest, and I just didn't know about it because I'm trying to tell you, man, I have never been. I like Pac songs, and there are some Pac stuff that I like for sure. Yeah. But I have never held him in the regard that a lot of people in my generation hold. Like, you talking about line for line, and you talk about Pac and Big, bro. It ain't even really no contest.
Pac never made me go like this. Like when you listen to a song, you have,
what did you say? Never. Not ever.
I never rewinded a Pac lyric. I never took rewinded 15 seconds. Like, yo, what did he say? That was fire. What did he say?
Not ever.
Never said that. Never.
Not ever. Now, I'm gonna tell you what you want to. Through the lights, cameras, and action, glamour glitters and gold, I unfold the scroll, plant seeds to stampede the globe. When I'm deceased, by then the beast will rise like geese to carve a peace, leaving savages to roam in the streets. That makes me rewind. That's Nas. That makes me rewind.
That's what I'm talking about. You might be an artist, but I'm from Queensbridge, just like Nas is. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up on that. I grew up from Nas. Mobb Deep, Capone from Capone and Noriega is my first cousin on my dad's side. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop runs through it, man. You know what I mean? Like,
Like, I mean, I'm not like trying to disrespect.
No. Obviously.
But it's just like it's just somehow it is, man. It's like line for line, man. That's Pac is a fantastic entertainer and presence in hip hop and in overall in culture. But as an MC, line for line, I'm not like, I would say that he has maybe one of the greatest voices. You know what I'm saying? Like, Pac say something and it could be really basic, but it sound like he just gave an overture. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely always would give him that. But just lyrically, line for line, as people who sit down and write, yeah, man, like you said, he never said nothing that I had to rewind several times. Just is. You see our chat just went completely
quiet. Quiet, man.
They either clicked us off or they have fallen out of their seats.
I was just gonna say the Lauri Markkanen, the comments are getting pretty heated about Markkanen, and somebody's saying he's trash. He's saying you can't trade him at all. Like these are people are much more into Lauri Markkanen's much better for comments than Tupac.
There's no such thing as a trash NBA player. I mean, you may not like Lauri Markkanen, but he's not. There's no such thing as a trash NBA player.
Man, people don't understand.
Prophet the Realist said that he wants to trade Markkanen for Bol.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. If you wish.
Yeah. I mean, man, people crack me up, man. I used to have a dude tell me, man. He said, "Man, I'm telling you, man, I will beat Tim Legler in a one-on-one." I said,
"Okay,
you'll beat who?" I said, "Dude, if y'all play one-on-one and Tim Legler gets first ball and y'all playing keeps, you won't touch it.
Yeah,
you won't touch it." I'm like, dude, the worst dude in the NBA is the best dude you ever seen in your life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. One of my friends, Gary Forbes, played in the NBA for a little bit. Always was in the suit.
Yeah,
he come to New York and played in the toughest, like playing at MCI in Chicago, one of the toughest leagues in New York. Scored 82 points in it. Like went home. Like my brother's not a dominant scorer, but he was routinely in New York scoring 40, 50, 60, 70 points in a game. Like it's like that, man. Like it's different.
They don't understand. Like it's a different level. It's levels to this.
And when they heat up, their heating up is different. I would heat up. We'll hit like 4 or 5 in a row.
Right.
They heat up. They're hitting like 15 in a row, and rather sweat, and then be like, "Yo, this is just practice for me today, yo. I just wanted to work on something." They'll use their those games, be like, "Yo, I'm going to work on my weakness today," and then just drop 70 on you. Like it's embarrassing, man. But yeah, I gotta get out of here because my son, he wants some attention. I got 4 of them kids, so
yeah, I got 4 too, bro. I got
4 boys, so yeah, I'm trying to build them up too as well. But
you just need one more, bro. You got a squad.
Yeah, I'm working on it. You know what I'm saying? I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on it. Definitely. Yeah, I need more kids. I'm one of 10, so we need more. We need more Artestas in this world. You know what I mean?
That's the soundbite of the show right there.
Yeah.
We need more Artestas in this world.
Yeah, we need them all. We need to terrorize everybody and stuff, man. But it's funny because Ron got 2 kids that play D1 basketball, one at CSUN and one at UC Irvine. They're opposite of him. Quiet, calm, chill, everything like that. Like Ron Artest the third. Yeah, he's like 6'9", 6'8", or whatever. And Jaron Artest, he's 6'5", point guard and everything. And it's just so funny. Like Jaron likes to invest his money. He messes with stocks and stuff like that. He invested in Amazon stock when he was like 10 years old. Like he's like that or whatever. He has a game. He has a game on App Store. And Lil Ron, like he just like driving Teslas and having fun and stuff like that, playing games. It's so weird when you see like Ron, and then you see his kids and everything, and then his daughters and everything. His daughters like got their own record label and it's just so funny, man. It's just so funny. It's different. We don't hate Tupac. Somebody didn't say we tripping. We don't hate Tupac.
Ain't no hate at all, bro. It's just Hey, Common used to have a line. And I'm not even gonna go to this extent, but if I don't like it, I don't like it. It don't mean that I'm hating. And it's not that I don't like Pac. I do. It's just that just because I don't have him at my top 2 and 3 doesn't mean that I hate him. We live in this place right now where you either all the way on the left or all the way on the right. Nobody want to allow you to be nowhere near the middle. There ain't no middle. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly, man. But thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Man.
Thanks. We'll wrap up here either. Brian, as promised, is going to text Joe Biden, and Biden will be on after he delivers his speech. If Brian, no, we will be back. We'll wrap up in a minute. Thanks to Daniel. Many thanks to Craig Hodges. Craig was in and out like 7 times. But while he was on, we talked basketball. We talked about activism. We'll try to have him back on, back in the show. Thanks to all the YouTube commenters. Bulls draft stuff, whether the Bulls should trade, Markkanen, who the Bulls next coach should be. A couple good programming notes here on the Bulls. We have 2 Bulls guests who are going to come up soon. One is Michael Sweetney, and the other one who I think we're going to have next week is Jay Williams. So Jay Williams, the among other hats, newly anointed top morning radio guy on ESPN. We'll talk about his new show. We'll keep talking about the Bulls. Brian, thanks to you for coming on. We'll have you back here for sure, among other places. Brian, any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, man, I just want to say it was a pleasure to join you guys, get an opportunity to chop it up with former neighbor, even though I never actually had met him, Craig Hodges, even though he lived around the corner from me. Somebody is part of my childhood growing up watching the Bulls, and also getting a chance to virtually meet my man Dan here. So you know what I'm saying? So now when you see me pop up in 2K, you could be like, yeah, I actually have had a conversation with that dude. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, it's all good. And I appreciate you being for having me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it again when you guys have an opportunity.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll follow up heavy on Bulls, heavy on Lakers. And by the way, to everybody on the Lakers page, Lakers looking pretty good here, up 8 early. So something tells me Lakers are not going to get swept in the first round. So thanks to everybody for joining. And we'll see you again soon. Follow the Heavy YouTube channel. Follow Heavy on Bulls on Facebook, Heavy on Lakers on Facebook. Let's get a Twitter handle so everybody has them at Unique Mazique. Do I have that right for you, Brian?
Yes, sir.
And Daniel, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Daniel Artest Pod.
At Daniel Artest Pod. Okay. So we'll wrap it there. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.
All right.